In the world of many internal and external voices, the voice you listen to is the voice that dictates your life. Would you like to discover a clear path to a life of freedom and fulfillment? Then welcome to All About the Voice podcast, where we focus on awareness, alignment, and action in order to live a life of abundance. I am your host, Victoria Rader. Pneuma. From Greek, that which is breathed, the vital spirit, the creative force of a person. Having lost her daughter, and for many years having walked in the shadow of deep despair, Carrie Wipfli, a pneuma healing and health coach, is now a voice for joy, guiding grieving moms from loneliness and void of the absence of the loved one to peaceful clarity and joyful spiritual connection communication. Here is Carrie on discovering a flip side to grief. All right, Carrie, welcome to All About the Voice podcast. I'm so happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Victoria, and thank you so much for letting me introduce people to the flip side today. The flip side of grief.
The flip side of grief. Actually, let's start right there. So I actually, meant to mention to you, we just launched an app that's called I Happy Me. And one of the subsets of that app is called My Grief. And through work with clients, I found that there are over 90 aspects of grief. The feeling of your pain being minimized or being alone and so forth and so on. But I have to say this concept of flip side of grief is beautiful and new to me. So tell me what you mean by that.
I know it's a revolutionary idea because I've searched everywhere for another way to grieve it took me over 16 years to discover that and everything has an opposite, including grief. And most grief is explored or is experienced in an absence side, not on the presence side, which is, like I say, a revolutionary concept to explore. Each person has a choice. A lot of people believe that they're learning to accept for the rest of their life, but it's my idea that from personal experience and experience with my sister, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail, and my clients, is that by exploring the other side, you're actually introducing your perspective or turning your perspective into a more positive way to grieve. So I wanted to see how I could have my daughter here, how I could actually, and that's what I've seen from all my clients myself is there's got to be a way because I'm receiving signals that's showing that she's here. So how can I explore this? How can I experience my grief from that side of it? And like I say, this concept was nowhere to be found.
Beautiful. There's actually one of the universal laws is the law of polarity or the law of opposites that presupposes that here now in the space that we are, there's always an opposite. And I so deeply appreciate you saying that there are two opposites of grief, one being absence and one being presence. And so when you've mentioned you've been looking for that other aspect of presence for 16 years prior to finding it. So take us down your journey. What happened to you?
In 2002, my daughter passed away at 1 day old, and the pain was it was huge. She was a day old, so I can only imagine what it's like. And nobody wants to imagine what it's like for someone who's had a child for many more years or even 2 years up to 40 years. I mean, it's just a phenomenal pain. I didn't want that pain, so I went looking, and I looked everywhere, and I did drugs, and I had the medications, and I drove everywhere, and I recorded everything, and I journaled, everything. I tried everything. Nothing worked until I turned within. Go figure. When I turned within and started to listen to that message coming through, that's really when things turned around for me. And what I call spirit and you call the voice, that's really where, and that's why I think grief is so unique to each of us, because we're all getting unique messages coming through, that in grief, it's really phenomenally difficult to listen to know, to be aware of, to align with, and going along with your themes, your beliefs on your show. It's unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to find it. So when I turned within and started to really trust what was coming through, that's when I kind of turned to this, I'm here, Mom. I started to really hear my daughter and that connection to spirit that I have, and started developing my theories and living those theories, and now providing them to clients, is that there is a deep, deep, deep connection to spirit. We're all one. And that's the way to explore grief. Grief from without or grief from with. And it's the with where you start to really listen to yourself, your child, you'll find your loved one every time.
I have to say, when you said that simple, I'm here, Mom, I had chills all over my body just at that, that kind of testimony of her presence. And this is what you're talking. So why is it that we find it so hard to hear that presence when we're grieving?
Well, the way it's come across for me, and the way I think, the many choices we have in life, we can go our entire life without realizing that that's spirit. And I'm not a religious person. I'm talking spirit. We're all of spirit. Spirit sort of poured into flesh, flesh to spirit. When a child passes away, when a loved one passes away, it's flesh to spirit, but it's still spirit. It's still connected to you. But there's this disconnect when your mind goes to loss and grief and sadness and forever and pain. Those words, our words are really powerful. When we go to that side of it, we never really know what to look for. We can't know what to look for because what we're looking at is the loss and the pain, and we get lost. And I did too. I got lost in that. I had the numbness, I had the shock, and then I went to avoiding it altogether. And then I went to complex grief, what they call complex grief, where I was really, really depressed. Oh, and I call those levels, and it's sort of a starting point. But in all of them, and what I found, the more depressed I got, the louder my daughter's voice became. But I didn't know it was my daughter's voice.
What was the voice saying? When you say the louder it got, what was the voice saying, and how did you finally discern that it was her voice?
Actually, that's a good question. The discernment came when I was standing in my driveway. I remember this like it was yesterday. And when you're in grief, you have waves and waves and waves of emotion. And just taking the wave like it was anger. And then first it was sadness. And then I kind of came up for air. That's what it felt like a wave was crashing down. It came up for air and there was anger. And then there was guilt and shock and surprise. And I went through all of them. And then at the end, and I don't know why I think I know why I experienced it now, but there was joy. There were tears of joy. I actually remember laughing. And I stopped myself and said, they all feel the same. They all feel the same without any words attached. They all feel the same. Now, how can that be? Now, that's spiritual awareness to me. That's also love. Love is the only thing that's why I think spirit and love are the same thing. That's what I believe. And all the others were pain. They came with pain. But joy was the same feeling, and it wasn't pain. So I honestly believe that the more my daughter's voice, and I say voice, I'd say it's more of a presence. The more I felt that, I realized that what I was reading as pain was actually her love, was actually her saying, no, because if you think about it, love is more intense than anything else, and you can't destroy it. Why would it not be stronger than pain? Of course it would be. So that's where I went. That's not pain. And as soon as I turned my mind to this is her love, things started to change phenomenally. I had all kinds of signals and signs and out-of-body experiences. It was amazing what happened. When I turned my perspective, when I turned off the grief and pain key and turned on the presence and love key, it was phenomenal what I was seeing then. She was everywhere.
So how does one do that? So when somebody who's listening to it right now and they find themselves in that anguish and grief and an intense pain and that phenomenal pain that you refer to, how do they find that switch and what do they do to turn it on or, to switch?
The answers for me came from me. That's why I developed this program, because it's got to come from each person. It has to. Your answers are there. All your answers are there. And your child, your loved one has been contacting you the entire time. You can't sever the connection. So, like I say, to explain the answers, lots of people ask me, how did you do it? What are the answers? Give me I haven't got your answers, but I do have methods to get you there. I do have that. I mean, talking to your child, just that, listening. Like, I've explained this to my clients. If you ask your child a question, listen for the answer. Whatever answer you get, it's not coming from you. If it was coming from you, you wouldn't be asking the question. You already know the answer. That's coming from spirit. Whatever answer. Yes, it sounds like we're so interconnected spirit-wise that we think throughout our life, we're thinking about it. It's actually a thought coming through. It really isn't. It's spirit coming through. So when you ask your daughter, your son, your husband, your loved one, when you ask them a question and an answer comes through, like, everything's fine, I'm okay. If you get that answer, that's from them, not from you. You wouldn't have asked it if you knew your answer.
Fascinating.
It's not your thought.
So what do you do with conflicting answers or with answers that are not coherent? Clearly, you've learned to differentiate between them. I know how those answers come through for me. When you talk to your clients, when you talk to other mothers that are going through that grief, that haven't developed the neural receptors for recognizing it yet, how do you train them to start recognizing?
I've got methods that help them find the words that identify, that they click with better, that speaks their language. Because we can get, with all the people, all the spirits that we're connected to, I think everyone we pass by, everyone we meet in life, you and I are forever connected, Victoria. If I think of you and a thought comes through, that's coming from your spirit. That's what I believe that's how interconnected we are. If someone is not, what they're getting is making them feel worse, or it's sort of a lost in translation. It's something that they need to train themselves, practice to do. And that's also in my program. I've got like a 12-week program, 6 steps. I don't know if this is a good place to put it in, but I've been telling Victoria that I've been at my sister's place for the last month. Her daughter, my niece, passed away at the age of 21 a month ago, and I haven't been able to get home because of fires in the province that I live in. So I've been helping her through with my program, and never would I have dreamed a sister would become a client, but I've been helping her with the program, and she laughs. She's had tears of joy. It's a month into her grief, and she knows that she doesn't like the word grief, so she's released grief, and all she's exploring now is Reconnect. She loves the program. She's learned how to use words, be specific to her words. So she's discovering the different words that actually click for her so that she can change the narrative of her story. And it's really, that's where it is. That's where your power is. Whatever you're telling yourself, that's what you're going to live.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that wholeheartedly. Well, tell us a little bit of and I understand that it's very individual, as you've mentioned, and it's very unique to every person and to their words. But I'm sure, I know for one, I would like to know, how did you know that you were communicating with your daughter's spiritual essence, with her spirit, and that you kind of got to bring her up in a different way and be with her in a different way? So just share some stories with us.
Well, she did just turn 19 on the 14th of August. So that was nice. She's helped me plan her birthday party every year. And how she does that is I'll ask a question, I'll get an answer, and that's her answer. That's what I've learned to trust. I've had out-of-body experiences where, over my body, that sort of thing. But I've also had where a plane literally stopped moving. When I was bringing her body back into the valley where I live, that plane stopped. It was like time froze. I learned that whatever I come up with, whatever idea I come up with, there's no one that can prove me wrong. So why not be right then? Because it gave me a huge amount of comfort. And like you said, goosebumps. Whenever I get goosebumps, I know she's near. As soon as she comes to mind, I just trained myself to know that that's her. Now, initially, she came through in the wind. And when I finally fully released my grief, she was, like I say, everywhere, because she would come to mind, everything I connected with. Part of my program is actually exploring heaven on earth, which that's where she is. so I can connect to heaven as it sits on earth. That too it's just a knowing. A mother knows when their child is there. My target group is grieving moms because I'm a grieving mom, but I know that every parent screams to have their child back. I know that. So anyone that's grieving can benefit from this program. It's really hard not really hard, but it's just a knowing, right? She comes to mind, the goosebumps start, and I just know she's there. And I can see her. I can talk to her, I can dance with her, I can hug her. She came up to me the other day and gave me a hug, like around from behind, and I felt her arms. I felt her. It was more than presence. It's a matter of possibilities. Once you start working on the concepts and changing your perspective, your possibilities, it just cracks your world open.
Well, I think that's a huge comfort to those that are seeking comfort as they're grieving, through a loss of a loved one, to understand that they haven't lost them. They've changed, they shifted the relationship to a different frequency of them being present through the spirit versus physically. The question I have for you is, what would you say, what it would be, and I don't like the word danger, I guess, but what would be a possibility of being so then pulled into that spirit world that you past the time of grieving forget to live here now? How do you resolve that? How did you find that balance of saying, she's here now spiritually, and this is me? Just kind of help me understand that balance.
They're on the same planes. My program is functional grieving. You will learn that your child is on the same plane as you are. You're actually not up in the clouds. You haven't went crazy. You actually, you're changing your perspective to what you see and what you want to experience. So there's no danger of being up in the clouds. You're actually in your world, what you're doing. There was one day I was doing dishes, for example, and she came to mind. I said, "Oh, well, thanks for helping me do the dishes." And she said, I don't do dishes. She argued with me. She doesn't like dishes. So no, thank you. But, things like that. It's like the interaction comes to you. It's an automatic thing you'll learn, and with practice, it'll be innate, right? But you won't have to lose yourself in the process. It has a lot to do with your body and your mind health, which you will get through the program as well. It's the healthier I got, it was parallel to what I experienced with my daughter. The higher my healing got with my body and my mind, the more spiritual interaction and connectivity that I experienced. It's phenomenal how it works. So as a health coach, and that's one of the reasons why I went through a health coaching program, was to learn how to get my body to a high level of health and my mind. And as I learned that, like I say, it's phenomenal where she is. She's everywhere. But most of all, she's here, which connects with everything I do. Once you know that your loved one is here living with you, part of your spirit, you will be amazed at what comes through.
Well, that is a daily reality with what I deal with. So you're preaching to the choir, my friend.
Well,
but I love it. I love that is your perspective, because I know I'm often asked, how do you differentiate between the two? And I do see some people that stop living, that they are in a parallel reality. And I do see that as being the trap. And it's powerful to hear you say that it coincides with your daily reality, that you don't need to be absent from one to be present in the other, that you can be present in both at the same time. And I think that's a delicate, beautiful journey. And I'm very happy that your program allows for people to do that, to be present at both here and now and at their here and now, combining the two into this complete reality. So that's probably very helpful. So if you have somebody that is in the middle of grieving right now, they've lost their loved one, where would you have them start? How would you have them start the process of healing?
Well, I think it's important for them to know where they're at in their grief. If otherwise, if you don't know where you're starting and you have an end, everybody does this. They go off in every direction, but then they don't know where they are because they don't know where they started. So I have a free starter kit for anyone that would like to get that start. It's available at my website, which is, I'm sure you'll link, but www.functionalgrieving.com. It's in the starter kit. It has a quiz that will give you a starting point, and there's also some useful tips in there to help you slow down in your grief, because I think it's really important to slow down and just start to really listen to what's coming through. And then with that starting point, you can get firm on like being aware of who you are, what you want, and the direction you want to go in, what you want your grief to be. So if you're feeling pain, like I say, you've already accepted that your loved one has passed away. If you're feeling pain, that acceptance is there, because if you didn't accept that, you wouldn't be feeling any pain. That's your reality. So now you make a choice whether it's with or without you want to live with your loved one, with your loved one or without your loved one. Most people choose without because nobody really knows that they can choose to live with them or how to get there. Then you can start aligning yourself. I'm going to utilize some of your concepts as well, Victoria, if that's okay.
That's
you start aligning what you're doing and what you're looking for with actually receiving their presence. And you learn how to develop that focus into, like, you tighten it, very fine focus to what you need to be receiving and what they need you to receive, how they would like you to receive. And you'll learn that, you'll get that. You'll release grief, because really grief is, if you look at any definition in the world, it's sadness, it's forever, it's pain, it's sorrow, it's mourning. If you look at it as more of a reconnect rather than grief, because to try to reconnect with that spirit, that's going to be unsettling too. None of us know how to do that. Nobody's been taught how to do that. That's unsettling. Grief is unsettling, but you can have the unsettling with moments of joy, pockets of joy, until you learn that what you're focusing on, the words you're using, is really key to this, and what you're telling yourself. And then you'll see them. I'm not kidding you. You'll see your loved one everywhere when you change your perspective. That's your abundance.
You know, I love that. And I love the point that you made. I actually had to jot it down because it was so poignant. You said pain is the point of acceptance. I loved that if you're experiencing pain, that means you already accepted the reality of a loss. Because if you're in denial, you're not feeling pain. Or if you're numb, you're rejecting the fact, so you're not feeling pain. But by the time you felt pain, that you're at the point of acceptance. And then I know you and I have briefly mentioned this whole process of that. I think Buddha, said it first, that pain is mandatory, but suffering is optional. So once you have that pain, you can accept the pain. And so what are your thoughts on suffering generally, and how do we get rid of this addiction of ours to suffer?
Our addiction to suffer comes from not knowing we have a choice and not knowing we have control over it. I think that's what it is. Once you know that you have a choice and you start to explore that and become more and more aware of it, you'll be wondering one day why you would have chosen your suffering. I think suffering also comes from, a lot of it is guilt. A lot of it, especially in grief, is guilt. As long as you hang on to that, you're hanging on to your pain. And I did too. I hung on to my pain because I thought I'd forget my child. So once you learn to let go of that pain and actually look at it a different way, it can be pain, or it can be, for me, it was pain or it was love. And when I started to really focus, ignore the pain part of it and actually really focus on the feeling of it, and how very much similar it was to the feeling of pain, just changing the word made that reality. It just started to transform the reality of what I was feeling, of what I was experiencing, bringing her closer and closer into my awareness, into my life, so that everything I did, that's what I was doing, was looking for her. And then that's why I can stay grounded. It's firmly in my life. Is the more I explored my life looking for her, the more I found her. The more I stayed up in the clouds sort of thing, and that's more like avoidance to me, the less I've experienced the fullness of, through, like, if I can experience her in my body, my mind, and my spirit, and I have spirit connectivity exercises in my program as well, so you can understand spirit. I'm pretty sure not a lot of people know a lot about their spirit. I think there's some disconnect there. So once they know what their spirit is and how to tap into it and connect all of it fully, like a whole experience, it's, like I say, it just transforms your life. Your reality will transform.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As we connect to who we truly are and we free that essence, the miracles happen. And as you've mentioned, looking for your daughter, you started finding her. And I teach a concept that notice what you notice, because what you notice is what you create. So if you notice her presence, you create her presence. If you notice her absence, you then grieve it through that absence. So very, very powerful concepts. One, I think, question that I usually ask, and I was trying to see where in time would I like to take you to get the advice. But if I could have you now, 16 years plus, well, I guess 19 years since she was one day old. And her name is Patricia, by the way, correct? I was trying to see Patricia.
Right, yeah.
So Patricia was one day old when she crossed over into living in a different way than our physical body is living. And 16 years you were seeking for a way to heal. You've developed this program, and it sounds like been practicing it for the last 3 years. So if you were to go to that day of you losing her today, with all the knowledge that you have, what would you tell yourself on that day?
I would tell myself, don't use the word loss or gone or ended, anything like that that makes it permanent like that, because I won't be able to find her if I think she's lost. I would say talk to her as much as possible, and I would tell myself to slow down my mind, but I don't think I would have been able to get there back then. I would have had to be shown how to slow down just so I could hear what was coming through. Honestly, that takes a lot of effort. That's probably the hardest part of my program, is just to slow down and be aware of what's coming through. It does come. My sister's been doing my program for 12 weeks. She's done her program today, and she's learned that slow down, and like the abundance of receiving your child, your loved one, can come in music. It can come in dancing. It can come in just sitting and thinking. It can come in, like I say, doing the dishes. It comes in everything you do. And it's just a matter of, like my sister said, if people slowing down, that's a really important concept, because your mind's racing. You're just trying to find the answer to how to save yourself the suffering, right? I honestly don't think it's so much an addiction as it is we get ourselves into it because we're focusing to try to get rid of it. But when you focus on suffering, that's what you get.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it's Judge Troward. There was this British scholar, and he lived in India, I believe. But the quote, I believe, comes from him. It was Judge Troward that said, slow down in order to speed up. And his point was that as you slow down, generally, your thought patterns, your anxiety, your rush, your need to get ahead, move faster, as you slow down that, you speed up the ability of internal connection. You pretty much, you take away that, disturbance of that. And so slow down to speed up. And I talk often also of the stillness, of presence of the divine, of the spirit, right? Of God for me. It's the still small voice, or that stillness. And I think it's when we slow down to the speed of love, right? Because love is here, love is now, and there is always time for love. Love is not in a hurry. You've mentioned love so many times that, my acronym for love actually for this program is life originating vibrant emotion, with emotion being energy in motion. So that you are loving when you're originating life. And the language that you're describing, when you say it's over, it's lost, it's the end, those are not life originating words. They're absent words. So I am a big proponent of love, Carrie, and I love this program of yours. So I know that you will touch a lot of hearts. I, for one, will be sharing your message. I know there are a lot of mothers and probably some fathers that experience the same pain that could benefit from your program. So I want to take you forward, I don't know, let's say 15, 20 years from now, and kind of seeing where you are, where the program is. And if that Carrie came down to you now, what is the advice that you need to hear from her?
I need to hear that the face of grief has been changed, that people are actually choosing not to suffer now. That's what I would want to hear, because that is my goal. It doesn't break my heart. It feels like I'm overwhelmed with love for people that I hear they're screaming out in pain. They're asking for their answers. They're searching everywhere for that to end their suffering. They want their child back. I scream right back that you can have them. It takes effort, but it is possible. And honestly, someone who screams that has already felt that pain, doesn't want any more of it. Their child is reaching out. Their child is right there. And just this concept, I know this doesn't have much to do with your question, but if you'll just bear with me. A child always returns home, and their first home is mom. They grow up in our bodies. They're going to return home. There's no place like home. I swear it. I receive these messages from my daughter. I've seen grieving clients actually turn right around and say, yeah, they actually feel the presence of their child inside of them, realizing that that's always been the case. It's just the way they were looking at it. They could never feel it. And now they feel it. It's tears of joy, like I say. It's overwhelming. I don't know how many people in life really get to feel that tears of joy, that overwhelming love presence. But it's once you have it, you want to keep it. And you'll want to maintain it. I will put it this way. When you feel pain, that is also the presence of love that's being lost in translation. It is the same thing. When you dive into that pain and really figure out what it is to you, you'll be able to understand how they both feel the same. That's why they say love hurts. It's not actually a hurt. It's an overwhelming presence of joy. And we just don't know it enough. So in 15 years, I want lots more people to know what that overwhelming presence of joy feels like.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. What a powerful, powerful vision. It's a powerful vision. And I think you've already answered this last question, but what would you want to leave our listeners with? This kind of, if they remember you by one thing, and you've dropped a lot of gorgeous gems of healing and of peace and of connection to the spirit today, but if there was one thing that they remember you by, what would it be?
To save people from their grief. To actually have something in place where they now get to take back the power of their life and not only be functional, but actually have the presence of their child there, actually feel it. So yes, that's what I would like them to get, is that she's the one that helped me see or helped me find the presence of my child or my loved one.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I know I have felt the presence of your daughter through this interview, saying she's very proud of her mom and that she's your business partner on the other side. And just as you're touching the hearts of those that are here, still in their physical bodies, she's bringing those spirits to reconnect. So you guys are an amazing team. And it's been an honor to interview you both directly and indirectly today.
So I'm glad you're laughing, because she loves to laugh. So I know she's been spending some time with you during this interview.
Oh, this is good. This is good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you for being here with us today.
And thank you, Victoria. And I hope we can talk again soon. I mean, I'm going to start a podcast as well. I'll drop the link for you when I got it up.
That'll be amazing. What will be the name of your podcast?
Functional Grieving, Exploring the Flip Side.
Love it. Love it. We'll be on the lookout for it. All right.
Okay. Awesome.
That was Carrie Wipfli inviting us to the other side of grief. To reach a destination, be it a geographic point of interest or a spiritual place of abiding peace and healing, one must know when one is starting. To start your journey of functional grieving today, you may find a free intro kit to Carrie's program that can be downloaded from her site, functionalgrieving.com. This is All About the Voice podcast, and I want to hear your voice. What has been of the greatest value to you today? Share your insight and share this episode with others. All links are in the description. I also want to invite the Voice of Happiness into your life via our iHappy Daily and iHappy Me apps, our daily energy boosters. You can download these apps, including a free version of iHappy Me from the Apple App Store or the Google Play App Store. for the voice of daily encouragement, grow with us with our free My Tree of Life Facebook group. If you want to join us in exploring how you can live your life with more freedom, head over to youtashine.com. That is YU2SHINE.com. I can't wait to get to know you and be a part of your journey of endless possibilities. Thank you again for listening to All About the Voice. I'm Victoria Rader, and I'll see you on the next episode.